You know when something's off? It's like the air itself holds its breath, waiting for the moment everything shatters. For me, that moment had been building for months. Each small clue, a thread pulling at the tapestry of the life I thought I'd built. My name is Julian Creed. I'm 43 years old. Ex-intelligence officer turned CEO of Cerberus Operations, a private security firm so deep in the black that even the shadows need clearance. But this was personal. My wife, Rowena. 11 years of laughter, dinners that bled into mornings, quiet looks that felt like home, had become the edge of the blade I never saw coming. It started small. The way she turned her back to me in bed, curling herself into a question mark, like the answer was somewhere in the dark, the way her voice lilting with a lullaby of excuses every time I asked about the meetings at the lake house. Just a girls' retreat, she'd said, her smile a little too soft, a little too practiced. But it was the humming that did it. She'd always hummed when she was anxious, like her guilt needed a soundtrack. I'd caught that tune one night when she thought I was asleep, the same fragile melody she used to sing when we'd slow dance in the kitchen, back before the world turned on its axis. But that night, it felt hollow, like she was trying to convince herself of a lie she'd already believed. I'd met Silas Vane at a charity gala 3 years ago, a handshake that felt like the beginning of something real. He had that easy charisma politicians pay consultants to fake, an open smile, a handshake that pulled you in close, the kind of guy who recommended the perfect whiskey and laughed like he'd known you since college. He played tennis with me on Saturdays, invited me to his country club, asked about Rowena with that glint of polite interest. I trusted him enough to let him into my world. Into our world, and then he took my wife, to my own second home, to betray me. The second home I'd built for Rowena when she said she needed a place to write, to think, to breathe, away from the city. At first, I wanted to believe it was just sex, that she'd fallen for a smooth talker and his easy grin, but the more I watched, the way she'd leave her phone on silent, the way she'd jump at shadows in the kitchen, I knew this wasn't just adultery. It felt orchestrated, like a script they'd rehearsed, until every line was a perfect performance, and that scared me more than anything. Because I'd lived in a world of shadows, where alliances were bought and sold like cigarettes, where trust was a luxury and betrayal was currency. And now, that world had come home to roost. I sat in the living room one night, the TV flickering like a dying heartbeat while she pretended to read on the couch. She didn't know I'd been in the safe that morning, seen the coded receipts, the offshore accounts she'd set up under both our names. She didn't know I'd found the burner phone she'd hidden in the flour tin, 11 years of marriage, and she still hadn't learned. I know every inch of this house. I built it. I designed it. I made sure every window was alarmed, every door reinforced, and she thought she could hide from me. A ghost of laughter tried to escape my lips, but it felt like broken glass. "Julian?" she asked, her voice trembling with that edge of innocence that used to melt me. "You okay? You've been distant?" I looked up at her, studying the lines on her face, the way her fingers curled around the spine of the book like it was a shield. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to know how long it had been a lie. But all I could do was smile. That cold smile I'd practiced in interrogation rooms. "Just work, honey," I lied, tasting the bitterness on my tongue. "It's been a long week." She nodded, her relief palpable. She thought she'd won, that I'd let it go, but she didn't know me anymore, if she ever did. Because I was Julian Creed. And I didn't let go. I hunted. I hunted until there was nothing left but ashes, and a name in a file no one would ever read. Later that night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her breaths, trying to remember if they'd always been that shallow. I thought about Silas. I thought about the night he toasted to old friends and new beginnings, his grin sharp as a blade. I thought about the way Rowena glanced at him when she thought I wasn't looking. And I thought about the way she hummed that tune, the one she used to sing when she needed comfort. Now it was a weapon. Hers, not mine. I knew then. The lullaby was a lie. A note she'd sharpened until it cut me in my sleep, and I knew I'd have to let it play out. Let her believe I was blind. Let her believe she'd won, because the worst mistake a traitor can make is underestimating the man they betrayed. And I'd spent too long letting my guard down, playing the good husband, pretending I didn't see the shadows gathering behind her smile. But the shadows don't scare me. They never have. I make them. I bend them to my will. And if Rowena and Silas thought they'd found the perfect mark, if they thought they could orchestrate my downfall in my own home, then they'd forgotten the one rule I'd learned in all my years in the field. Never. Bring a lullaby to a gunfight. I leaned back in my chair, cuffs rattling, and studied him. The way I used to study foreign agents on the other side of the glass. His shoes were polished, but worn at the edges. His tie had a coffee stain near the knot. His eyes darted, just a little too often, to the camera in the corner. He was nervous. Good. Nervous men make mistakes. Where's my lawyer? I asked. My voice? Steady, calm. The voice of a man who'd done nothing wrong. The voice of a man who'd once dismantled networks, with nothing but a phone call and a favor. Hardin smirked. Your wife's lawyer has recused himself. Conflict of interest, he said. His grin widened. Guess he didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. My lawyer, Silas Vane. Of course. The circle completed itself with neat precision. I could almost admire it, if it hadn't been so predictable. I let the silence stretch, until it hurt. Then let out a small resigned sigh. One call, I said. That's all I ask. Hardin considered it, then shrugged. One call, he agreed. He handed me the phone, the cord stretching like an umbilical. I dialed a number only a handful of people in the world knew. Vincent March, DOJ contact, friend. The man who'd owed me since the night in Maui, when I'd saved his entire detail from a Varley kill squad. He answered on the second ring. Vincent, I said, my voice low and steady. It's time.